I want you to be on your very best behavior. And do not embarrass me in front of Leslie.
Well, I'm not going to be in front of Leslie. I'm going to be right next to her behind.
Why, I bet you don't even know how to eat an hors d'oeuvre. Well, look, you take your thumb, your index finger, and you extend your pinky like so. You grasp the hors d'oeuvre, put it in your pie hole, chew, and bow in the grand manner. Now, come on. Let's go put on the Ritz.
As with others I have done in this series, a good portion of those watching probably did not know that this existed. But yes, in 1999, a Laurel and Hardy reboot was produced. It was supposed to be the first in the series of new films based on the work of Stan Laurel and Oliver Hardy. The story surrounding this film is a fascinating one, and it connects to several of my other videos, including not only my ongoing Laurel and Hardy documentary shorts, but also my Jim Varney video. But we'll get to that connection later on. The story of this failed reboot begins in the mid-1960s. After Oliver Hardy died, Stan Laurel retired permanently. He spent his remaining years hosting fans, both famous and non, to his Santa Monica apartment. Here, Stan was visited by Larry Harmon, an animation producer who was most known for playing Bozo the Clown after purchasing the rights in 1956. Harmon convinced Stan to sign away the rights to the likenesses, images, and names of Laurel and Hardy. This means that any merchandise or depiction of Laurel and Hardy has to go through Harmon's estate, even today. I know Harmon pursued these rights legally, but there are some who feel that Stan was not in the right frame of mind when he signed them away. I feel the rights deserve to be returned to Stan's family, but I doubt that will happen. When Stan died in 1965, Harmon was quick to produce a series of Laurel and Hardy cartoons for Hanna-Barbera. As well as cartoons, Harmon had toyed with the idea of producing a new live-action Laurel and Hardy film using new actors. It's a baffling concept simply because Laurel and Hardy weren't just performers. They were real people who defined their characters. This idea was shelved until the late 1990s, when big screen remakes of old comedies were all the rage. Enter John Cherry, producer and director of the Ernest P. Worrell films. With the Ernest films no longer being a major success, John Cherry developed an idea to license the Laurel and Hardy brand to produce a series of similar kids' adventure films. But there was only one catch. Larry Harmon wanted to be involved in the film's production directly, and even wanted to be a co-director. So right off the bat, we have two directors with vastly different backgrounds collaborating on this film. Now, for those who haven't seen the Ernest movies, there were often side characters, mostly played by Gaylord Sartain and Bill Burge, who were sort of tribute characters to Laurel and Hardy. So John Cherry's involvement in this project does make a lot of sense. He was a clear fan of the brand and used their work to inspire his other films. Gaylord Sartain of the Ernest films was even cast as Hardy, and Bronson Pinchot of TV's Perfect Strangers was cast as Laurel.
Right then, I'm thinking of a number between 4 and 6.
9.
You win again.
I was always better at numbers.
Now, before we dive into the weirder elements of this film, I need to say a couple of things. First, Gaylord and Bronson are doing their best in this film. It's obvious that they were Laurel and Hardy fans, and they approached the roles with dignity and respect. Bronson even played Stan before in a tribute episode of Perfect Strangers. I can tell that they were both excited to be a part of this film just from watching the behind-the-scenes footage.
Stan Laurel was a complete clown, and he never thought there should be anything sentimental or dramatic or anything in any of his movies. It had to be funny every second.
They have the look and mannerisms down pretty well, and even the costumes are pretty spot on. Secondly, I absolutely loved this movie as a kid. I grew up a Laurel and Hardy fanatic. Here's me at age 4, with a Laurel and Hardy birthday cake at my party. They are arguably one of my biggest comedic influences in film, and they mean a lot to me. That being said, while the mere concept of replicating their work is baffling, I viewed this film as I would a cover band. I always knew it wasn't the real thing, but I accepted and admired it as a fun tribute, even if it doesn't quite hold up today. The idea that this film was going to be a whole series of films is where the concept starts to lose my appreciation. The film's title is, and bear with me on this, The All-New Adventures of Laurel and Hardy. In for Love or Mummy. Now note, that was adventures plural, signifying that there would be more to come if this film was successful. But this film flopped pretty hard, and would end up becoming the final all-new adventure. Like the later Ernest films, this movie was shot in Cape Town, South Africa, which just gives this movie a strange look and feel. Something about it just doesn't look quite right, as if the frame rate is slightly off. Excluding the two leads and F. Murray Abraham, most of the cast is made up of South African actors. Oh yeah, did I mention that Academy Award winner F. Murray Abraham is in this? He plays a museum curator, and he has a few scenes with the Laurel and Hardy characters.
It was the most horrifying day of my life. Gentlemen. Gentlemen.
The plot of this film is just batshit insane though. I'll try to summarize it as briefly as I can. Laurel and Hardy, or rather their nephews as the film points out, are members of a fraternal organization that is sponsoring an Egyptian artifact exhibit. One of those artifacts is the cursed remains of the Pharaoh Huta, a mummy who comes back to life at the hands of an evil businessman. His plan is to capture the daughter of F. Murray Abraham's character, who Ali just so happens to be in love with. So the boys have to save the day and stop the mummy. Yeah, it's a lot. It feels more like the plot out of an Abbott and Costello film than that of a Laurel and Hardy one. Laurel and Hardy films could often be very simplistic in plot, and relied a lot more on comedy writing than exotic crazy scenarios. With a plot this complex, the small budget just doesn't match up. A lot of this movie just looks cheap, as if it were shot on video. The special effects look dated and poorly done, and even the mummy himself looks like a Halloween prop than that of a lead villain. But as I did say, Gaylord Sartain and Bronson Pinchot are just fun to watch in this. There's a lot of callbacks to old Laurel and Hardy bits, but they also take a shot at creating some new ones.
Hand me my toothbrush, Stanley. Stanley, hand me my toothbrush.
I don't think you want your toothbrush.
Stanley, hand me my toothbrush. Now listen, Stanley. We go to this gala tonight, and you're not used to hobnobbing with the socially elite. So you follow my lead, and don't embarrass me.
A few gags are well executed, while others fall flat. I wish the filmmakers hadn't tried to go so big with this movie. I would have watched these two characters go on a much smaller scale adventure. They could have put the budget into other things instead of badly done CGI and props that don't look very good to begin with. Again, I know the very idea of this movie is comedy sacrilege, but watching it today takes me back to being a little kid and feeling like someone had made a movie just for me.
What'll I do?
What do you mean, what will you do? You'll be protecting me.
Who's gonna protect me?
Can you for one day in your life think of anybody besides yourself?
I really do love Laurel and Hardy, and John Cherry and the lead actors handled this film as fans of Laurel and Hardy themselves. I'm not sure how Larry Harmon's role worked out in this. I know he gave himself a cameo.
Lieutenant, who's the bozo?
Oh, just some clown.
Maybe he was the one who wanted it to feel so big? Who knows, honestly. This film is mostly forgotten, and I find that many haven't seen it today. Despite this, I don't get the sense that the film was just a cash grab. It's just a very sloppily executed tribute to Laurel and Hardy.
If you know it, you ought to be in here where it's safe.
I can't get in there if you don't open the door.
How do I know it's really you?
You'll know when I get my hands on you, I'm going to give you what's for.
What for?
For a little while. And would you open the door?
Say, Ollie, it's not polite to come calling this late.
I know, but there's a mummy on...
Laurel and Hardy would get a more appropriate big screen love letter in 2019's Stan and Ollie biopic. And even though I love that film, I'll never forget being a kid and watching this other little-known Laurel and Hardy film. If nothing else, it shows how tirelessly the real Laurel and Hardy worked to perfect their act and earn their place as comedy icons.
Follow that limo.
We certainly won't lose them now.
We certainly won't.